Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by Reps, Virtual Reality, First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, Tip of the Spear, the Top Hopper, and Sports Workbook. So a couple weeks ago, Alex Mirabal texted me that he left the best practice he's ever been to on any level. And then the other day, Coach Garrett was telling me about Nathan McPeek. So I was like, oh, I've heard of him. Yeah. So I put two and two together. So now I got Coach McPeek on here. Coach, thank you for coming on. For the people that don't know you, got quite a following. But for the people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, Coach.
I appreciate you having me on, Coach Taylor. You're doing a great job, first of all. And there's a lot of great coaches that have been on here. So kudos to you and getting everything going on your end and your podcast for football. So just wanted to say that to you.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so like you said, I've kind of had, just coaching wise, I'm going into year 20, just finished our 19th year for me personally. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Kentucky. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. I had a fairly small school comparative to a lot of high schools in the country. I had a really good career there. I was a three-sport player at Russell High School with football, basketball. Then I was a shot put and discus guy in high school. Was highly recruited to throw shot and disc. Was able to win 3 state championships in that. But I wanted to play college football, and obviously, I was a big guy that could run, and I had several offers out of high school, but Marshall University was at that time really good. I arrived there right after Chad Pennington finished in 1999, and my first year was 2000. And played with a quarterback that a lot of people know in the football world, with Byron Leftwich, which was with the Buccaneers, won a Super Bowl. And, unfortunately, as we all know, there's two types of coaches, ones that are fired and ones that are going to be. So with Byron, with the Bucks and, coaching the NFL and, but, very, very smart football player. But anyway, we finished top 20 in the country twice, the 4 years that I played at Marshall, and learned a lot about the game during that time. But I knew at a young age that I kind of wanted to get into coaching when I was done playing football. I come from a football family. My uncle coached 27 years at the high school level. He was a head coach for over 20 of those. So kind of grew up on a high school field. My grandfather, which recently passed away, he was a high school official for a long time and started our youth program in our hometown back in the 1970s. My dad didn't get into coaching, but obviously he loved football. And my mom loved football. So it was kind of in the DNA of the McPeek family, just football based. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. So unfortunately, I was with the Packers in 2004, and then I had a back injury and a foot injury. I never got to play in a game in the NFL, but I at least had an opportunity to be on a roster and compete. But unfortunately, those injuries, playing offensive line, catches up with you, and kind of never felt like the same player after that, and went straight into coaching and teaching as soon as I got cut in 2004, and been doing it ever since. So I've been married since 2006 to my wife, Sarah. We've been married a long time, and doing good. We don't have any children, but we're both in education. We're both teachers, and we settled in here in Lexington, Kentucky, and we've been here the last 7 years. But I'm sure you'll get into maybe a little bit about my coaching background per se, but that's a little bit about myself.
Yes, sir. Just to talk about Byron Leftwich, they used to have something called the Sports International Art Monk Football Camp. And that was up in Northern Virginia, like at George Mason. And there was always these coaches from DC, and they would bring their players. And one of the guys looked like an offensive tackle. But someone said, this guy's a quarterback, and he can fling it. He had like one of those footballs with had the missile thing on the end of it. He could hit that thing and throw it 100 yards. But that was Byron Leftwich and Cato June that went to play at Michigan, were two of the guys. But, man, just to get to see him as a guy getting ready to go to Marshall and to follow his career. And then my teammate, Doug Chapman, he was the running back for those Marshall teams with Chad Pennington and, with Randy Moss. So I've always kind of been a Thundering Herd fan. And, I can remember the first time I saw a picture of Randy Moss. My coach had put a picture up, and it was of Doug running of a touchdown, and I saw this guy in the back, and I was like, who is that guy with the striped socks? What is he? Is he a tight end or is he a receiver? Because I'd never seen a player that looked like him. But, man, he's the gold standard. And then Coach McNally, coached at Marshall, after the plane crash. Can you talk a little bit about, the pride that you have for being from the Thunder and Herd and being a part of that, legendary program and the tragedy that occurred? And, just, man, y'all had it rolling, man. And your head coach was a former high school coach from Virginia, Bob Pruett.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously Marshall's a special place. They, here at Douglas, they recruit our school, and they've offered some of our kids over the years, and obviously got a good relationship with those guys. But, like I tell our kids, it's a Group of 5 school. Obviously, they're playing in the Sun Belt now. We were in the MAC when I played there. But you might play in front of more fans. Obviously, you're going to play with. If you're going P5, you're going to play maybe with a little bit better facilities and more NIL money in today's society, all those things. But you won't play for a town or an area that loves football more than Huntington, West Virginia. And that's because of the plane crash and the story of the togetherness of the community. And every player that plays there knows that story. Whether you play there for a year or 2 or 4 or 5 years, that story, and that it's really ashes to glory. There was always a remembrance in November because obviously it happened in November, and we never lost that week that I was playing there because it was a very emotional time. We always did a remembrance. We would go to because where the plane crashed is honestly right near the airport. It was obviously very unfortunate tragedy, but we would go visit there, and see kind of the story of all of those graves and those people that had perished and all the families involved. And there's so many people even still today in that community that lost people that are their families. So there's people that are still, in Huntington, West Virginia, that they lost dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and people that are still part of that community today that are still alive. So it's definitely a story of perseverance and a lot of adversity, because obviously when you bring the program back, it wasn't very good. It was one of the more losingest programs in the 80s. And then obviously, getting to where we were one of the winningest programs in the 90s and early 2000s, playing for a lot of championships and bowl championships. So I had a great career there. I was fortunate to start 52 games in a row there as a true freshman all the way through. Very, very proud of that because as an offensive lineman, that's what you want. Very fortunate. I didn't have a ton of major injuries through my career until the very end when I tried to go to the pros. But, it's a great time there. Learned a lot of great lessons that I'm very thankful for from Coach Pruett and a lot of our other coaches, because I knew that, I wanted to go into coaching. So I knew that, like I said, from a very young age. So I always, studied film, and it really helped me become a head coach early on. I was a head coach at the age of 25. So it was a very, to be young like that and try to, kind of wade your way through being a head football coach, that those experiences really helped me grow into what I am today for sure.
You were a part of the offensive line that carried Byron Leftwich when he hurt his knee. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about that. And I mean, man, that's toughness. Like that guy, man, he's a winner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in today's world and the way the game is, that would they wouldn't have let him come back in nowadays. But he literally left, went to the hospital, got X-rays, came back. He actually got a ride back to the stadium and went back in the game. So because there's a hospital right there in Akron near the old Rubber Bowl. And obviously he had a fracture and he played with that, and they allowed him to do that. But at that time that wasn't public knowledge. But we won a MAC championship that year with him basically being on one leg, and he was a statue back there. So
good size statue.
Oh yeah, he's big. He's a big dude. He's a big guy. But it's one of them things people ask us a lot about it, and there was other offensive linemen involved besides me. But there was no word said. You just kind of look at each other and you pick them up and you go on to the next snap. And, that's football. You got each other's backs, and the best teams trust each other and they love each other. And, you go through that together. It's a fraternity in itself. And, there, like I said, there was no word said. It's just stuff that you do and you go through, and all the blood, sweat, and tears, as you know, and everybody that's played the game knows. And you just do it. You're there for your teammates. You're there through the good, bad, and the ugly. And obviously that was a momentum, or obviously a memorable experience through all of the history of college football.
Yeah. So you get out of college and you become an assistant coach. How old are you? You said you got your first head coaching job at 25. So, I mean, you must not have been an assistant very long. Can you talk a little bit about that, being an assistant?
Yeah, and I've actually done the circle twice. So I've been an O-line coach up to offensive coordinator O-line after a year, and then I ran an offense, and then I became a head coach. Soon after that, and then I was able to get a job in Atlanta, Georgia, at Tucker High School, going back to being an assistant.
Yeah.
At that time, we were really good.
Brandon Thorpe? Thorpe?
I remember the name. Yeah.
BT, baby. Man, look at Coach Mirabal.
What's up, Coach?
What's up, Nate? What's up, Troy? How you guys doing, man?
Hey, man. Just glad to have you here.
Hey, I was in a meeting, and then we've got a youth camp coming up, but I wanted to jump on real quick and say hello to the both of you, man.
Yeah, well, Coach Mirabal, Coach McPeek, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. Coach Mirabal, talk about his practice that you went to and how impressed you were.
You know what? First of all, Coach McPeek and I, we heck, now, Nate, 4, 5, 6, probably about 9 years ago, 10 years ago is when we got to know each other, when I was at Marshall. And Coach McPeek, he's a legend at Marshall now. And so he came, and he was a member of, great teams at Marshall, and really, really great offensive lines too there, And so I got to know Nate at the time there, and we've kind of, he's an O-line guy, I'm an O-line guy, and we kind of hit it off, and we have a lot of respect for him, and have recruited Frederick Douglass when I was at Oregon, not when I was at Marshall, but when I was at Oregon, and then now here at the University of Miami, and tons of respect for him and how he carries that program. And that program has only been around, what is it, Coach, 6 years?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they're going into year 7, and they just won a state championship, so it does a great job, And when I finally had the opportunity to go to one of his practices, and I went in the spring, and when you walk out there, he's, first of all, I knew where the O-line was at, because he had all the O-line equipment laid out already, in terms of, and it was like in order of what drills they were going to do, because so many coaches, you go to these practices and you see that they wait time where their practice started and they're yelling at the O-lineman now, hey, now go to the shed and get the equipment out. Well, that should have been done before, and so, and Nate is the one who goes out and puts the equipment out there on his own and all that stuff. And I remember doing that when I was a high school coach, and hell, I still do it. Coach, we had skill development today, and I go out, and while they're stretching out, that's what I do. I go lay out the equipment. So it helps me mentally know, what am I going to do first? What am I going to do second? Okay, how many offensive linemen am I going to have today? And so you see that, and coach, to me, that shows the amount of preparation, the amount of organization that it means something to him, you know. And if Nate was coaching in college, if he was coaching in the NFL, I guarantee you he'd be doing the same thing, even though even if he had an equipment guy, you know. And so, but his practice is extremely well organized, extremely precise. You know, there was like a you know, a process as to, there was a purpose in the drills that he was doing. And you saw those drills in action when they moved to inside run or 7-on-7 run, however you want to call it, when they moved to the team portion of it. And it wasn't just the offensive line, obviously, because he coaches the entire team, right? But he does coach the O-line. He coaches the O-line, coaches the team, and his D-line coaches were doing the same thing. His wide receiver coaches were doing the same thing. So there was and because of it, there was a flow to the practice. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing more beautiful than watching a well-run practice. There's nothing worse than watching a poorly run practice, you know? And as a coach, you appreciate that, you know, because to me, it's the ultimate sign of respect that a coach pays to the game of football is by how organized his practices are, how precise they are, how prepared they are. And you can see that. And I'm not just saying that because I know him and we recruit his kids. I'm saying that because that's what I truly feel. You know, the two best practices that I've gone to were Coach McPeek's there, and then the one down here at Christopher Columbus High School in Miami, Florida. Very similar programs, and guess what? They're both state champions. So there's a reason why that is, and it's beyond just having good players. It's having good players, holding them accountable, giving them a purpose to practice. You know, and I think when you go to Coach McPeek's practice, there's a purpose to it. There's a rhythm to it, and it's awesome to see. And I got a ton of respect for you, Nate. You know that. And I appreciate you and what you continue to do to the game of football. And heck, Coach, all these podcasts we're on, he's on all these. He's a McNally follower. He's on that. He's about making the game of football better, and specifically making offensive line better. So appreciate you, Coach.
Thank you for the kind words, Coach. You know, I think you're one of the best, not only offensive line coaches, but people. You know, you obviously recruited our program. Like you said, we've only been around 6 years, but, you know, you took time and trusted my opinion on some kids when you were at Oregon and Coach Cristobal. So, and you're doing the same thing at Miami, you know, 15 hours away and across the country. So, that means a lot to me. You know, whether our kids, you know, whatever they decide to do, they decide. But there's not one time that you haven't, you know, reciprocated the communication back and forth with me. And I know you know this, but I really appreciate that aspect because there's obviously a lot of lying and a lot of things that go down in the recruiting business nowadays. But you're not one of those people. And I really appreciate that about you and just the people and the family man that you are. So really appreciate those kind words as well.
Well, Coach, I appreciate that. And, you know, I think it stems from me because I have a ton of respect for high school coaches because I was one for 16 years, you know, and I know I was on the other side of the desk. And sometimes when you don't get the proper communication from college coaches, because you're never as a college coach, as a pro coach, as a high school coach, you should never be too busy to forget your manners. You never be too busy to forget just the common decency of communication and calling a guy back or texting a person back. You're not that busy. Okay. I'm a college coach. I'm not that busy. You're a high school coach. You're not that busy. You're a pro coach. You're not that busy to forget how we were raised, to forget where we were coming from. And, but yeah, no, Coach, it's been awesome, and he does a great job. He's going to have another really good football pro team. And here's what Coach McPeek doesn't have a team; he's got a program, and there's a difference between both of them. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure at LC Burr, I'm sure you've got a program, Troy. You don't have a team.
It took a while, man.
And yeah, but it takes a while, right? And we're in the midst of that right now here at Miami, of making it a program, and that's important. And a program is something that no matter you have great players and they go play in college, or you have great college players and they go to the NFL, but it continues, and that's what we're trying to do.
My dad always says, he goes, you just don't win when you have seniors. So Coach McPeek, I might go back and ask you something, Alex, but what does that mean to you when he says you have a good program or a great program?
Obviously, I think about obviously very, kind of him to say that. When you're in the mix as a head football coach, as you guys know, and, obviously coaching a position, you don't really see necessarily those day-to-day operations and think of yourself in that way. At least I don't. If you didn't point out the fact that I had everything out there and organized, I would have never thought twice about it. But again, I think that just goes back to a lot of hard work that our assistant coaches have done, our administration, obviously myself and everybody else as a coach in our program. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of free labor, especially at the high school level, if you're going to do it right. And you don't get into it for the money, because as we know, we don't make much in the high school, especially. So you got to know that going in. And that's what I tell a lot of our young assistants that are getting into the game. It's a situation where just a lot of hard work goes involved if you're going to do it the right way.
And so we got a comment. I don't know if y'all know Gook. He watches almost every single one. Coach Mirabal makes a great point. You're never too busy to forget your manners as a coach. Class act. So Coach Mirabal, is there ever a time that you go into a school and there may be, I don't know, I'm just going to say Randolph-Macon or Hampton-Sydney, a small college, and then when the U logo walks in, everything else stops and those other coaches are forgot about? I know you probably don't allow that to happen, but have you ever seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about, Coach? Because that's what I think of when you say don't lose your manners.
I was there, right? I was there. I was FIU when I was at FIU when it was just had 2 years old as a Division I program. I was there. And no slight to him, but I was there when I was at Marshall, and I'd walk and here come Notre Dame or here come Alabama. And I was there. But you know what? The coaches that there some high school coaches, turned their attention or sent you to an assistant or somebody else while they dealt with the bigger name coach, and but when I was at a camp yesterday. I was at a satellite camp yesterday, Nate, and at FIU, I was there when we went over there, and I was talking to I had a great conversation with a great offensive line coach at St. Thomas University down here in Miami, and to me, we're all the same, man. You're gonna tell me Coach McPeek could come, Coach McPeek and I could switch positions right now, and our offensive line will not skip a damn beat. Will not skip a damn beat.
I believe it, man, because everybody tells me he's legit.
I've just been fortunate enough to be granted this opportunity, and I never looked for it. And at some point, the opportunity is going to come for Coach McPeek. It's going to have to be whether Coach McPeek decides to say yes or no. But that's coming, right? That's coming because too many of us go to his practices and see how he runs it, and too many of us also see the results on the field. And I'm not just saying that because he's on the video. I truly believe that, and that's why Troy, I said you should try to get Coach McPeek on, because to me, he does it the right way, But you should never, as a coach, as a college coach, as a high school coach, you should never slight any program, because all those programs are there. You're just trying to help kids. They're trying to help kids. They're trying to help kids go to school for free, no matter what level of quote unquote play it is, just like a college coach, you should go to, I try to go to as many schools as possible, no matter if they have a guy or they don't have a guy, because out of respect to the coach, but also when they do have a guy and all of a sudden I show up, come on. But if they have a guy and you've been going to their school regularly, they're going to try to help you and give you an opportunity to recruit that kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask y'all a few O-line questions. I'm gonna pick y'all's brain a little bit.
There you
So
go.
first of all, I'm gonna start with Nate. Nate, what is it? Alex, he asked me how I got hooked up with Coach McNally, and I think that's divine intervention, man. I don't know how, but Nate, what has it meant to you since Jim McNally has came onto Twitter?
I've watched pretty much all his videos, and I told you thanks for getting him on here. To see somebody with his experience, and obviously he's a legend on offensive line play. I know his history as an NFL coach, and started a lot of new concepts, and it gives me just a lot to look at for him, and I'm glad he's doing it at his age. And I think he probably looks forward to putting stuff out there and trying to advance the game continually. And he gets fired up now. He gets fired up, so it's good to see. And he's passionate about the O-line position. And like I said, I watch pretty much anything he puts out. I may not comment or anything on it, but I definitely watch it and take notes on it. And a lot of things that I do, I can use that he says, and at the high school level. And sometimes, as we all know, as high school guys, you don't have that 6'5", 300-pound great athlete, but you can make some things offensive line wise if you make it pretty simple. I use the KISS method: keep it simple, stupid. Get a little bit technical, but at the end of the day, they still got to get their body in position to make plays. And that's what Coach McNally talks about all the time, is just that body dynamic piece. And I just try to do that with our guys at the high school level and give them a chance to succeed. But it's been awesome to watch.
So Coach Mirabal, Coach McNally gets frustrated. He doesn't think anybody's reading his tweets. He doesn't think anybody's learning anything. I mean, hearing Nate say he reads Coach's tweets, how does that make you feel? And, you've been up close and personal with Coach McNally since he's been on. So just talk a little bit about how that makes you feel that Nate's actually reading his tweets. And you tell Coach.
Well, Coach McNally's got to start believing us when we tell him that everybody's reading his tweets, man. We're all doing it. I do it. And one of the things that I'm with Nate, one of the things that's awesome to see that it's been inspiring to me, right? As a coach, that Coach McNally is constantly trying to learn. He's 80 years old, right? Going to be 80. He's a GOAT of probably the most influential, Nate, I think you'd agree, probably the most influential offensive line coach in the history of the game of football, right? But he's still yearning to learn, and he's still giving back. And as a coach, I'm 53. As a coach, it's awesome to hey, man, he's motivated, because there's things that we did some stuff today in our skill development that I hadn't done before, Nate, and I did it because of watching Coach McNally's tweets and videos, right? And it's stuff that Coach McNally and I have talked about, his squeeze concept, right? We can't call it squeeze here because we've got squeeze for another word. So we've installed it, and I told the O-line, okay, what do you want to call it? They said, well, Coach, it can't be squeeze. Okay, Coach, vice. Well, I said, it can't be vice because we got a run call that. So they said, hey, Coach, what's McNally's first name? I said, Jim. So now it's called the Jim technique, right? Just that fact that now guys like you, Nate, guys like me that are continuing to do that, we're continuing to teach these younger guys who Jim McNally is and the impact and the influence that he continues to have on the game of football. Not that he had, but that he continues to have. And as a coach, it fires me up, because it's like, man, keep your mind open, right? And keep learning. And then one of the things that I learned from Coach McNally is make a drill. You create the drill, right? You create the drill that's going to help you do that. And I'm with Nate. Do I love watching Coach McNally? Yeah, there's certain things that he talks about that I'm not going to do. The majority I do, but there's certain things that kind of might not fit what we're doing. And that's okay. There's certain things that Coach McPeek, when I went to Coach McPeek's practice, right, Nate, I asked him, I said, man, Coach, I wish I would have filmed that counter drill that you were doing. So Nate filmed it for me the next time he went out with his kids and sent it to me, and we're going to start doing it. Right. So anytime as a coach that I can take things from anybody, it is, to me, it is helping my guys get better. But it's been inspiring to see Coach McNally on Twitter, because it's inspired me as a coach that, man, I got so much more to give. I got so much more to learn, and I hope that I have a quarter of the impact and the influence that he can have, So it's been awesome.
You got D. Williams down here. He's a high school offensive line coach. He's probably been coaching like a year. He was a player and he transitioned to coach, and he's a high school coach in Alabama down at a high school. He watches almost every clinic. So since he mentioned the counter drill, Nate, talk about that counter drill. What does it amount to? How do you set it up? What are you practicing? Double teams?
No. So we run 3 variations of counter at Douglass. Your traditional, GT counter like Oklahoma, and Coach, Lincoln Riley did really well at Oklahoma, now at USC. We do a guard and tight end counter, and we also do a tight end and tackle counter. So pretty much it's 2 pullers. But what we do is we set up. I have some bigger bags, X bags, of med balls, and our kids will mix up looks of either a spill technique, or we have to log things, and when that defensive end is really down on that down block on the front side, and then obviously working linebacker scrape, and then we'll also work where that C gap defender is up the field, where we got to have a kick and that tackle lead. So it's definitely something that a lot of people do, but when Coach Mirabal came, and it meant something to me that he would say something like that, being as good as he is in his profession. But I forget who I saw do it. It might have been Oklahoma when they were running it. I saw it somewhere on maybe some film or Twitter or something, and just implemented it. And it's been good for us, because it gives us, we might play a team one week, for example, in the state championship game. We played against Bowling Green, and they're a really heavy, spill team. Like, they're almost down in that B gap. So what we put, and it honestly helped us win a state championship, is we put in counter sweep, where we bypass that guy and gain an extra hat at the point of attack. Well, we would do that drill, and we would work counter, and then install counter sweep, where we, bypass that guy to gain an extra hat and kind of bounce it outside like a wide zone or a sweep play. So, and that helped us win a state championship, and it's something that we didn't show on film all year long. But basically, we'll do that during the regular season. We'll do that once a week. Right now in skill development, we're doing it quite a bit. We did it a lot when Coach was there in the spring, because we're installing those 3 counters those 2 days in the spring. So, and again, getting our kids to understand how to do that drill. And I give them the authority to pick what they want. So I don't tell them. So they either, they're taking that bag or med ball and working spill, or they're up the field, and our kids got to read it, and we got to be in that 3-by-1 position with the second puller. And we'll incorporate tight ends with that as well during camp and skill development, where they can see that as well.
Coach Mirabal, you got any questions you want to ask him about that at all?
No, because I was able to see it, and then he sent me the video, and you could tell when someone's a really, really good coach too, because when Coach McPeek is describing the drill, it's like he's really descriptive of it, and you can get a visual image of it, and but it's something which is good, because like with me, I'm not gonna BS you, Nate. I used to work the double teams, and I used to work the kick out part of it, right? And but I would kind of like the second puller, right? The drills really benefits the second puller, right?
Yeah.
Second puller reading whether the guard is kicking out or whether the guard is logging and I come around. And honestly, I've always done that where it's been like in a team setting is where we kind of get the reps at that, right? Well, that's BS on my part. right? If it's something I'm going to require our backside tackle to do well, then I've got to put him in that environment where, in an individual.
You probably got a phone call, Coach.
He's that important.
Yeah.
That guy's doing it. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I got it. So, but no, as far as that drill goes, I actually saw Nate do it, and you know what? Like Nate said, he said something very interesting. He says, maybe I saw it on Twitter or something. Man, coaches, when coaches put stuff out on Twitter, whether it's an NFL deal or a college deal or I steal so much stuff. I ran into the Florida State offensive line coach, Alex Atkins, I know there are rivals, but I have a lot of respect for Alex. And I said, man, I stole one of your Gallup drills, right? And then he tells me, well, I stole one of your double under drills in med balls, So we're taking from each other all the time. So I thirst for that, man. When I see these drills, I'll go back. Or if I see a D-line drill that's good, I send it to our D-line coaches. So I think that's one of the positives of social media. We can all reach out to each other.
Yeah, and I mean, Nate is actually doing something Coach McNally always talks about is you're basically using the other team's coaching against themselves because, I mean, they're so well coached to wrong arm or to wrong shoulder that thing that you're actually not even – the dude's going to wrong arm you. You don't even log them. You just keep going, right?
Yeah, and for us, that's why we went ahead and told our back how we wanted it. That's why we added that tag to it. But yeah, definitely. I mean, you could teach it both ways. If you get enough reps at it, your kids can do anything you need them to do. But for us, we want the ability to, like I said, be able to run those 3 different counter looks with multiple formations and multiple motions. And, we work it because we run a lot of it for sure.
Yeah. And I think Nate brought something up. Nate, 2 things, Nate. We ended up that counter sweep. We ended up, he was calling me too. We ended up running that counter sweep against Ohio State,
Coach,
in when we were at Oregon. And I know
I'm gonna
has run it 2 years in a row against.
hold on, Coach.
And it's really, really effective,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. Really good stuff, Coach. That's awesome.
Because Ohio State's a big spill team.
Yep, for sure.
And the other thing is that you're hitting it on the head too. I think as an offensive line coach, what drills you do should reflect what are you running. I mean, if we didn't run counter, I wouldn't have to do those drills. But since we do run counters, I better do those drills. And I think it's Coach Troy, I know you were talking there on the phone, but
yeah, Coach is on here. He's driving. I'm gonna put the phone down, but yeah. he was just going over with me because I asked him. I said, Coach, like, what if you don't pull? What if you just block same side zone, block the way you're going all the time? And he said, well, it's about angles. And he said, put the tight end in a wing on the same side and run counter, and it'll bounce. And it's almost Nathan the same thing that you said. So Coach is listening on here. Coach McPeek, would you like to tell Coach McNally what it's meant? Because to you that he's been on Twitter. This is the best coach in Kentucky, Coach McNally.
I don't know about that, but Coach McNally, really appreciate what you're putting out. You're a legend in the game of offensive line play and one of the best coaches around. So on behalf of me as an offensive line guy, I really appreciate all the effort and the energy that you put in over the years with this position and making it a skill set based position. And just want to thank you for that and just everything that you're putting out.
Thank you very much, and I've got to go because I'm going to a
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Coach.
That's okay. Let's hope we don't have to go to one of them soon, particularly ours.
Put me in a coffee can, Coach.
Okay, buddy. See you.
All right, see you, Coach. Good luck, guys. He's gone. Man.
He's a national treasure.
Yes, sir.
Nate, did you know that I got Coach McNally on Twitter? That I was actually the guy that made it happen.
Yeah, I think you had told me that, or I saw it somewhere. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Alex, has it changed the game that Coach McNally's on Twitter?
You know what? Absolutely. Just because just the content, and you know what else? I think a lot of the stuff, and Nate, I don't know what you think, but a lot of the stuff that Coach McNally does is really common sense stuff as well. Mm-hmm. You know, and one of the things that we were talking about it earlier, that our offensive line graduate assistant and our O-line analyst, we were talking about how Coach McNally, most great coaches, Nate, right? Listen to your players. Watch your players. I learned so much from our guys, you know, not just you telling them, but listen to them, mm-hmm. Right? Listen to them, watch them. You might be thinking it should be this way, but they're doing it a certain way, you know? And so I learned a lot from them. And I think that's what I've taken from Coach McNally, you know, is listen to your players, you know, because a lot of the stuff that he does, whether it's you know, when he's snapping down or the outside hand, it's common sense, but it's common sense, but nobody else thought about it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not that complicated. It's really common sense stuff that he talks about.
Yeah. And like you talked about with the players, and, you know, and you've been to some of our practices, obviously, but, you know, one thing I harp on our guys, you know, offensive line wise, is be coaches in the lines during Indy. You know, watching the guy in front of them and, you know, coaching the young guys, especially like our older guys approaching the younger guys, because I can't see everything. So I want our guys to be, you know, coachable, and all of our guys being able to tell each other kind of what they're doing. And, you know, like I tell our guys during a game, when we come off to the sidelines, you should be able to tell me why you missed that. And that's what we want to try to get to.
Amen. You know what, Nate? We actually, during our skill development today, one of the last things that Coach Cristobal told our team was that, you know, that we need to take a major step with our older guys, taking the younger guys under their wings and doing it. You know, and I'm sure you two, Troy, Nate, one of the most frustrating things, right, is doing an individual drill and having 10 guys go and do the drill, and the 11th guy completely does the drill completely. Not that he doesn't do it well, but does it completely wrong. And you're like, dude, what have you been watching? You know what I'm saying? So don't be a spectator. Don't be a spectator. Be a participant. You know, but that's Nate. What you just talked about is what we're trying to get our guys to continue to do. And when you see it, like you watch film, you know, because I know you film your practices, Nate. Troy, do you guys film your practice?
Yes, sir. We have. I mean, right now we don't, but yes, sir.
And one of the things that I look for when we're filming our practices is what's going on away from the action. You know, what's the, you know, is the starting right guard, is he taking the backup right guard and teaching him? You know, Coach Cristobal talks about this all the time, and I think this is very deep. Stop looking at your teammates as threats. All right, your teammates aren't threats; they're competitors.
Yeah. Right.
Some guys, when they consider someone to be a threat to their job, then they're afraid of helping them get better, as opposed to their competitors that are there to their competitors and teammates, not threats. And that's one of the things that Coach Cristobal really harps on our guys about.
Yeah, I want to say this because it's what we've been preaching to our team for the last 2 years. And Nate, you can talk about it, but I make them say, like, on the bad teams, who leads? And they say nobody. On the good teams, who leads? The coaches. On the great championship teams, who leads? The players. So Nate, can you talk about that? Do you believe in that?
Yeah, we player-driven leadership is my whole thing. You know, player-driven programs. You know, I was blessed to be able to ask to speak at AFCA this year, and you know that's what my topic was on, is what we do in our program to be player-driven. I'm not going to lie. We had, 28 seniors last year that had lost 2 state championships and been part of that. They were younger guys when we went before. But they completely took over the team last year. We had really good players, but I didn't have to deal with a lot of the off-field stuff. We could just get better on the field and continue on track because our players took care of things in the locker room. They liked each other. They did extra work without me even having to say anything to them. And, I've coached teams where, you're begging them to do anything, no matter what you do. And then you've coached teams like last year that were player driven, and, it was a joy to coach, and you finish with a state championship. So, like our team right now in June, we're behind. We got some younger guys that are going to get there. They're very talented. And like I said, coach has seen our practices, but we're not there yet. We're not where we need to be on player-driven leadership. And you hope at some point you get it and your players get it. So like today was the first time our players stayed after and went through stuff by themselves. I didn't tell them to do it. They decided to do it. So that's a step in the right direction. But yeah, definitely I'm 100% with you. I don't feel like you win championships if it's me doing it all the time. It's got to be the players, and they got to hold each other accountable so you can do your job as a coach. But 100%.
Nate, how do you, if I could interject, how do you, a program like yours that's had so much success, right? Gone to 3 state championships, right? Won 1, correct?
Yes, sir.
How do you battle, like kids in your program that thinking like it's a rite of passage, like it's like, hey, complacency, like, hey, it's going to happen again. How do you battle that?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, it's not just the players, it's the families. I mean, we've been blessed to have a lot of Division I players and a lot of college football players, and they're going and doing well in those programs. Just honestly across the country, like some other great high school programs in the country. But, to be 6 years in and have some of the guys that we have at major universities and they're playing well early in their careers, I think that's a credit to our strength coach with Coach Toll and everybody else. But I think it starts there is, building that culture in the weight room and understanding that we haven't done anything yet with this team. It's kind of a reset button, and kids are used to that with video games. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. And this is really uncharted territory for me and us because we're coming off of a state championship win, not a loss. So it's going to be kind of different for us. I'm curious to see how we handle it. I feel like we're getting better, but we're not there yet. And obviously we're playing a very tough schedule. We're playing a national schedule this year against some really good opponents that have really good football players. So I'm curious how we're going to handle that adversity, but I'm also looking forward to it and seeing what happens.
Yeah, so Dorrington Myers, he's a coach from Richmond, Virginia. He's a quarterback coach, just graduated from Virginia Union. He says, "Good afternoon, Coach. I hope everyone is having a great day so far." Dorrington, you got the state championship coach in Kentucky, and everybody told me Coach is such the real deal. And you got Alex Mirabal, the offensive line coach of the Miami Hurricanes, on here. All right, and this guy played with a pretty good quarterback here, Byron Leftwich. What is Byron Leftwich doing now, Coach? We need to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I think he's back in DC, and then I think he's coaching his son this year. As far as I know, I think he's going to take a little time away and possibly get back into it. But like I said, he's the smartest football player I've ever been around. He was really, really bright. And, I remember having conversation with him when he got done playing. He wasn't sure what he was going to do. And I remember he texted me and asked me how I like coaching. And I said, man, you got to decide on what level you want to do. And, he wasn't sure if he wanted to get into coaching. And then obviously he knew Coach Arians, and Coach Arians, he had played for him with the Steelers, and he brought him on with the Cardinals kind of as a analyst type guy. And, it goes from there into what he is today. So, he was obviously up for some head coaching opportunities, a year ago. And obviously didn't go as well this year with that's the NFL and college and high school, honestly, when you have injuries and things like that. So, like I said, there's two types of coaches, ones that are fired and ones that are going to be.
Coach Mirabal, who is the smartest player? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I've been both.
I've been both.
Have you? Who's the smartest player you've ever been around, Coach Mirabal? He said his was Byron Leftwich.
You know what? On the well, probably Justin Herbert.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I'd take both those guys.
Probably
What's so great about Justin Herbert, Coach? I got Dorrington Myers. You're a quarterback coach, and you got a guy. All right. I would love to connect with Coach Leftwich as well. Well, wouldn't we all? And I want to date Beyonce. All right. And I want a Lamborghini. We all want to connect with Byron Leftwich. All right. But you got the guy that coached Justin Herbert right here. So if you got a question about Herbert playing quarterback, this is the one to ask. So, Coach, what was so good about Justin Herbert?
Competitor, grounded, was where his feet were at. Could have left a year early to go to the NFL. Decided to come back because he wanted to win a championship. We're in such an accelerated society nowadays where everybody wants everything now and fast, and he never did that. He always just let it play out. He was a fifth-year senior. And one of the big things, Nate, you talked about it. Was he loved being a teammate. Right. And he didn't want to go because he was buddies with Penei Sewell, and he was buddies with Shane Lemieux, and he was buddies with Jake Hansen, and he was buddies with Calvin Throckmorton. And they all decided to come back for the year. And then they ended up winning. He ended up leading us to a Pac-12 championship, and he ended up leading us to a Rose Bowl win. So just a guy who's got his perspective right, got his priorities right. So it was awesome to be around him, and you know what? And he was different, right? It kind of like Byron, Nate. I mean, Justin is all 6'6", big human being. And when that ball left his hand, I mean, you could hear it, so he's extremely, extremely talented. And you guys see what he's doing now on Sundays, and it was funny because he was quiet. People take people that are quiet for not being good leaders. So that was something that he was highly criticized for by the NFL scouts when it was his turn to be drafted. And it wasn't. It was just he led in a different way, right? And you see how he is now leading in the NFL and doing all that stuff. So it was awesome. And then, Penei Sewell, he had like a sixth sense to him, right? And Nate will tell you, right, Nate, and Troy, Shell, the greater the player, the less reps they take.
Make it look easy.
Yeah, they don't. You tell them one time. We had T.Y. When I was at FIU. We had T.Y. Hilton.
He's pretty good.
You'd have to tell him something one time, and then he would tell our wide receiver coach, say no more. And those players that have a sixth sense and just, hey, Penei, why'd you do that? We have a kid now, a freshman here now, Francis Mawinoa, a right tackle. And Nate, he's a lot like that. Nate, like, hey, how'd you see that blitz? And he's like, well, coach, the safety was capped low and the 5 technique tightened up on me. And I'm like, well, but I never told you that. He said, no, but coach, I heard you talking about it with one of the older guys. And he put it into action right away, So to me, that's a gift. And I truly believe this. One of the most important abilities, if not the most important ability that we all have, is the ability to listen. I think that's a skill. That's an ability. Herbert, Hilton, Sewell, this Francis Mawinoa, Jalen Rivers, who you don't know who that is, Matt Lee, who's our starting center. They are phenomenal listeners. And because of that, they can transition stuff onto the field faster than most.
So, Nate, what do you think about that? What are you saying? Like, Bill Belichick's supposed to be the greatest listener of all time. But I got to say this before. The kids were telling me today that there's a guy who he's an offensive lineman. He's a sophomore, but he's never played a varsity snap. And he's 6'7", and he got offered a scholarship to this big-time school. But he's never played varsity football. And I told our players, I said, dude, the guys that work for organizations, teams that are worth $8 billion can't even pick them. Like, they can't determine who the best quarterback is. They can't even pick who a good offensive lineman is. So, like, what do y'all think about that? I mean, because all this recruiting and this guy's got an offer, but he's never done anything, but he's 6'7". How do you feel about that, Coach?
I mean, Coach Mirabal would know more about it than me, but I tell our kids and parents it's recruiting's three things. Number one is measurables, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
Number two is grades and transcripts, which that's even easier now with the ACT being thrown out by the NCAA in a lot of institutions. And then number three is your tape, which is very important.
Man.
So that's really the three things I talk to our families and players about. And, you know, I might have like my center last year. He was a really good technician. He was a really good football player. He was a great listener, as Coach Mirabal talked about, but he was 5'10". So he's going to play NAIA football, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Amen.
So, you know, it is what it is. I have another kid that's a backup left guard that's 6'6" right now. He's 280 pounds, but he's got a long way to go on listening skills and working with him. And, you know, and I told him again today, I was like, you're getting a little bit better, but you're not quite there yet. Do you want to play Division I or not? You know, so just getting that through those kids. But that's really the three things I talk most about, you know, and I try to be as honest as I can with parents. That's two things I'm always going to be, as honest and fair. And sometimes they don't want to hear it. They don't listen. But, you know, I'm wrong sometimes. And I mean this humbly, but most of the time I kind of know what coaches are looking for at the college level. And, you know, and if they don't take them, I don't take it personal. You know, it's okay.
Amen.
So.
Yeah.
So, Alex, what do you think about that? What I was saying, that even the NFL guys can't pick them.
Well, it's the same thing with our guys, right? So we've got our guys, when their NFL scouts are here, it all starts with the measurables first, right? So you go, okay, hell, who's that 6'6" kid? Who's that 6'7" kid? And then, okay, now let me watch him, right? Well, he don't move well enough, or he doesn't listen, or he's in the back of the line. So then all that starts to play in, right? And then, like Nate said, right, to the high school kids, hey, what's your tape look like? I tell my guys all the time, your tape is your resume. Your film is your resume. So for Nate's guys right now, they've got to show us, the college recruiters, right? For our guys here, they got to show the NFL scouts. So it's the same darn thing, right? And transcript, not as much, but at the same time, they do talk to the academic people. They want to know, how does this guy learn? You know, is he got a bunch of F's? You know, is he on track to graduate? You know, all that stuff. If he comes out early, does he have plans to come back and get their degree? Because they want to know how's this guy driven, you know? But it does start with that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when I walk on a field, and let's say I walked on Nate's field without talking to Nate first, and I walked on practice and walked on the field, my eyes are naturally trained to see the size, right? And I go look at a guy's size, okay, because to me, it's about the length, right? It's not only, you could be 6'7" and can't put your hands in your pocket, or you could be 6'3" and have extremely long arms, right? And so that's what I kind of look for when I do that. I would hope that whoever this young man is, and I obviously can't talk about it, but whoever this young man is, I would hope that someone saw him moving around, right? It's not only that he's 6'7", but he's 6'7" and he can bend his knees and he can move and he can, you know, he can react to stuff, you know? But I do think it starts, like Nate said, starts with the measurables. And then you see, okay, how does he move around, right? But you got to start somewhere, right? And there are exceptions. You know, there are outliers. There's outliers that we recruit for college, and there's outliers that they draft in the NFL. You know, like there's a lot of times I'm watching in the NFL and say, how the hell did they draft that guy instead of that guy?
Thibodeau. How did anybody pass up on Thibodeau?
But he was a first round pick. But he was a first round pick, though. But like, there's a center. center from Oregon, who I coached a while, and he gets drafted in the 7th round by the Broncos, and I'm watching while other old linemen get drafted beforehand. I'm like, doesn't make sense. But neither here nor there. I don't get, like Nate said, I don't get mad about it. When that scout comes back the next year, I'm going to try to help my guys as much as possible, with them. And you can't take that personally. You just got to keep doing it. And at the end of the day, Miami's going to offer whoever Miami thinks fits us. The New York Giants are going to draft whoever they think fits them. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to draft whoever they think that fits them, right? When the Cincinnati Bengals chose Jamar, I say Cincinnati Bengals because I know Coach McPeek's a Cincinnati Bengals fan. All right.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I just
Yes,
don't.
Sir.
I try to find out also who guys are interested in, right? So I know when they drafted Jamar Chase, right? They could have drafted Penei Sewell, but they didn't. They felt that Jamar Chase was better for them than Penei Sewell. I'm not going to get mad at the Bengals, right? So the Lions took him, right? So it is what it is. It is what it is. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, and hopefully somebody saw in that young man some ability, and hey, more power to him. Another young man that can go get educated in college and go from there. And you know what? When colleges offer these guys, right? And I suggest this to everybody. I suggest this to you, Troy. I suggest this to you, Nate. When a college offers a young man in your program, the question you guys have to ask that recruiter, is this a committable offer? Is it a committable offer? Because if it's not a committable offer, or if I offered one of your kids at either of your schools, and then I say, well, he can't commit, he's got to come to camp first. Well, then that's not a real offer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other.
That's to get him to come to camp.
I offer one of your kids, and it's like, yeah, but coach, he can't commit until he comes to visit our campus first. Right. So that's another thing, right? So is that 6'7" kid, is his offer committable? That's the real question.
I mean, he's just a freshman. The coach is probably going to get fired. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day. My son, he's a 6th grader. Yeah. And his grandparents, they got a spot down in South Beach.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it would be cool if my son could go down there to Miami and be a student assistant for Alex Mirabal.
Troy, I think Nate would agree. Recruiting has become so fast forwarded now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become so fast forward. And at the end of the day, I tell our guys here is make sure you keep the main thing, right? And make sure you keep the main. And it's fast forwarded for us now. It's fast forward for us where you got guys who are freshmen who haven't even stepped on campus, and they're already thinking about the draft. And heck, you haven't taken a snap in college. So it's the same thing, Same thing.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to have to check out.
Yeah, go ahead, Coach. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
Hey, Nate, you make sure you tell him, Coach, notice we wear the same colors.
Yeah. Coach, but Coach, I wasn't going to – I don't want to get turned in, but we've been known as the U for a while.
But notice – it's okay. I'm not going to turn you in.
Yeah.
Tell him I gave you copyrights.
Yeah.
But, hey, so Coach McPeek, make sure you tell him the story as to why your school's colors are orange and green.
I will. Thanks, Coach, for all the kind words. Have a great day.
Hey, listen, I appreciate the both of you. I actually got to go do a youth camp outside, so that's what we got to do now. But
go get it, Coach.
Appreciate you guys and appreciate what you guys do for the game of football and pushing the game of football forward. And thank you, Troy. A million thanks to you, man, for connecting all of you. For connecting all. You. And it means a lot to me. And keep putting those. Hey, now your next. You know what your next target is, right? You got to get Coach Scarnecchia on.
Man,
that'd be awesome.
Dante Scarnecchia. I got to go back to my New England clinic connection because he told me he was going to get Dante Scarnecchia. Coach McNally can give me Scarnecchia.
Yeah. Hey, appreciate you guys. Thank you.
See you, Coach. Thank you.
I mean, I think Coach McNally's got everybody's phone number. Don't you think, Coach? I mean, he could give me Dante Scarnecchia.
No doubt. No doubt.
I love Dante Scarnecchia. I love him.
Yeah, he's great.
But does he love me? Coach, did you know I had Bob Pruett on here? Bob Pruett was the DB coach for Parcells when he took the job with the Patriots. Did you know that they made Dante Scarnecchia a defensive I don't know, analyst. Did you know that? And
I did
he
not.
actually came up with ball disruption. And he came up with basically studying how the other team was carrying the ball. Bob Pruett talks about it in one of the podcasts I did. The video was all messed up, Coach. But that blew my mind. So I'm gonna ask him about that. Like that was humility.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, he wrote the manual. I still have the manual. Bob Pruett is a great football coach. So, Coach, we've been on here already an hour. I mean, this might be the best offensive line podcast of all time. I mean, had Alex Mirabal, Coach McNally came on. I mean, we've had a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
So, like, what is there anything else, Coach, that you want to tell the coaches out there about your program that could possibly help them?
The biggest thing is, I think Coach Mirabal touched on it too, is just, be humble and hungry in your approach. And, I'm seeing a lot, I'm not trying to be negative or naysay here, but I'm just seeing a lot with younger coaches coming into the profession, especially at the high school level, is, they want to come in and automatically be a coordinator, or they want to come in and automatically, start calling the shots. And maybe they don't want to be a freshman coach, or they think that, that's beneath them. You got to be where your feet are, and you got to be humble and hungry. This is not a business where you're going to start out on top. It's rare that you ever do. And I think a lot of young coaches are seeing the outliers of the young coaches like a Cliff Kingsbury and, some of these younger like Sean McVay. Those are outliers, and those are great coaches, and they do a great job. But for every one of those, there's 99% young guys that never make it in this business because they thought they were going to come in and do that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your goals set high. I mean, I have high goals. I've been a high school coach for 19 years and going into year 20. And at some point I might want to make that leap at some point, to see if I can be as good a coach and competitive at that level as I try to be here at the high school level. But just making sure the young guys, come in and learn, be where your feet are, make it the best job that you can, and just do a great job for your head coach. Like I said, I've been an assistant, I've been a coordinator, been a head coach, back down to an assistant, back up to a coordinator, and now the head coach at Douglass for the last 3 years. So, I've been full circle, and, it's a journey. And I tell people this all the time. Probably the most fun I've ever had in coaching is being an offensive coordinator. It's really fun because, you don't have as many outside things that you have to do. It's all football all the time. And, as a head coach, as sometimes you can't be football all the time. You got to take care of fundraising or paperwork or meet with this parent or meet with this teacher. Or, you have to do that, and you got to take that load off your assistants because, that's not their job. Their job is to coach the players, love them, and get them better. But at the end of the day, whatever goals and dreams and desires that you have, go achieve them and work extremely hard. It's not going to happen overnight, and hard work is something that's not prevalent in our country right now, in my opinion. But if you're going to be a really good football coach, you got to be willing to work hard. You got to be willing to put in the hours and have a family that understands that. And I'm lucky to have a wife that understands me being gone a lot. For example, we've been blessed to play 30 games the last 2 years because we've been back-to-back state championships. So in the last 24 months, I've had less than really 30 true days off where I didn't have something involved with Douglass football. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, your family.
That's what happens when you win.
Your family has to be very understanding of that. And it's definitely a lifestyle. It's not a hobby. If you're going to be good.
It's not a hobby.
It's not. And, but if there's anything, that we can ever do at Douglass or me for any coaches out there, I steal a lot of your guys' great ideas and look at all the great things that everybody's doing across the country. And, just to really appreciate what you're doing for the game, and Coach McNally and, Coach Mirabal and just everybody associated with it. There's a lot of good people in college football like Coach Mirabal, and, I get to see that daily. It's not everybody deals with things like that guy. But I really appreciate, the professionalism that not only you show in this podcast, but, people like him that are really in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, Coach, I'm unprofessional. Yeah, Coach, I must got you fooled. Coach, I'm the most penalized coach of all time.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen you coach. I've just seen you on here.
Gosh. Coach, we can't even run the ball to the other team's sidelines. They call holding every time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they start yelling holding. I start getting flags when I walk on the field, Coach. Yeah, but your grandfather was an official, and I'm going to pay respect to officials, Coach, because, man, I was an umpire. How do you deal with officials? Do they mess with you?
Not too bad. They tell me to get back, get on the field probably too much, and they got that 2-yard belt. But actually, I've been, since I've become the head coach, I'm actually a little bit more calmer than I even was as a coordinator, because you have to be. And I think you got to be on your game also as a head coach of making sure your assistants aren't getting any flags. Because, as you know, if those guys get flags, you get thrown out as the head coach.
I know. I've been thrown out twice.
So, well, I've never been thrown out, but I've got a penalty on me before. And, obviously being on the field, I like to be involved with the action and look at things. So that's really the biggest thing with officials with me. But at the end of the day, they got a job to do. It's obviously a shortage. So I respect what they do because we couldn't play without them.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to press end here, Coach. We'll stay on here and chat for a second, okay? But
yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.